You put in the hours, you stick to the routine, and you hammer away at your objective day after day. Yet nothing changes. The scale doesn't move, the bank account stays flat, and the project remains stalled. This lack of visible progress is exhausting. When you pour energy into a task for weeks without seeing a result, it's easy to feel like the effort is being wasted. It raises a difficult question. Why does monumental effort so frequently fail to produce meaningful change? The problem isn't usually a lack of effort. It's a misunderstanding of how progress actually works. We expect a linear path, but real change requires a massive accumulation of potential before any result becomes visible. Look at this stadium. For a young James Clear, the dream was to play professional baseball right here. He had spent his entire childhood preparing to reach this level of competition. But on the last day of his sophomore year of high school, a classmate's baseball bat slipped. It flew through the air and struck Claire directly between the eyes. The impact shattered his face and forced soft brain tissue against the inside of his skull. He was rushed to the hospital, placed in a medically induced coma, and hooked up to a ventilator just to keep him breathing. When he finally woke up, his previous life was gone. He couldn't walk straight or drive a car. In that state, setting a massive goal to become a star athlete wasn't just ambitious, it was physically impossible. When you're at the very bottom, focusing on a distant, massive goal can actually be a psychological trap. It makes the gap between your reality and your ambition feel so wide that any small step forward seems useless. Claire realized that to survive, he had to stop fixating on the outcome. He had to abandon the goal of recovery and focus entirely on the daily systems that would eventually get him there. Instead of radical leaps, he focused on getting just 1% better every day. He started with tiny, manageable routines, like sleeping earlier and keeping his room organized. This is a mathematical reality. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you end up 37 times better. These habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. They look like tiny blocks, but as they stack, they build an exponential curve. Daily habits act as the deciding factor in your trajectory. They determine the margin between where you are and where you could eventually be. Change occurs in 3 layers: outcomes, process, and the inner core, identity. Most people focus on the outer layer, outcomes, which requires exhausting willpower. Sustainable change works from the inside out. Focus on identity, and your internal beliefs naturally drive your actions. Think of 2 people quitting smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." They still see themselves as a smoker. The second person simply says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." This shift reveals how identity anchors behavior. Lasting transformation doesn't come from focusing on what you want to achieve. It comes from deciding the type of person you wish to be. This connection between action and identity is rooted in the science of operant conditioning, pioneered by B.F. Skinner, explaining how rewards and punishments shape behaviors. Today, we understand this as a 4-step neurological loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. Every habit runs through this cycle. We can hack it using 4 tactical laws. Make the cue obvious, craving attractive, response easy, and reward satisfying. Mastering this neurological loop is how you systematically program a new identity. It turns behavioral change from a struggle of willpower into a matter of design. Every time you perform a habit, you are casting a physical vote for the type of person you wish to become. Writing 1 sentence is a vote for being a writer. A 5-minute workout is a vote for being an athlete. A single vote won't change your self-image overnight, but as the evidence in the ballot box grows, your fundamental belief about yourself begins to shift to match your actions. This brings us back to the ice block. Heated from 25 to 31 degrees, nothing changes. But at exactly 32 degrees, it shatters into water. All that previous effort wasn't wasted. It was being stored for the moment of breakthrough. The plateau you feel is simply the time it takes to build up enough potential for the change to finally break through. Lasting transformations happen when you stop fixating on the horizon and start focusing on the floor beneath you. Trust the system, cast your daily votes, and become the person your habits already say you are.